What's up everyone, how are you all? Today we are back with another blazing Naruto story. What if Naruto woke up in an alternate reality? Married to every girl he knew. If you enjoy, then please like, share and do comments. I don't know why I'm here, not staring at a broken mirror, but here as in this body, this village, this anime. All I remember is going to the shops and on my way back. Nothing, just a black void. Until I woke up confused and small without any idea of where I was or how I got here and a headache. The first thing I needed to do was see my reflection to check for any obvious signs for why I'm suddenly a different height, so I went straight for the door on the left of my room as if I knew it'd lead to a small bathroom, and as I entered the first thing I noticed was a child's face. They were a small blonde, with 3 weird whiskers on each cheek. Naruto? Why am I seeing a bloody anime character? I instantly forgot my current situation as I'd a slight bit of hate towards the fool and his canon, future choices, and next thing I know I'm punching a mirror, the sound of glass breaking and slight pain in my right hand snapping me back to reality, or whatever I could call, remembering I was apparently seen as someone who I'd have instantly killed had I been literally anyone else. The blood running down the glass and angry shouting through the wall draw my attention for a moment. Keep it down, you brat. If I find you're preparing another of your pranks, not even the Hokage himself will keep you here, you're damaging my property. No, I just tripped on some water, sir. My response was met with sounds of grumbling, but after a few minutes whoever the guy was clearly had better things to do than yell at a kid through a wall. Guess I'll need to fix the mirror. Eventually? I'd rather not see my new look anytime soon. Still, from what I could make out from the shards of the mirror, I was around 6. Maybe 7? Meh, I'll find out soon enough. Best clean this up at least, as I don't need to cause myself any more trouble from this. After I'd cleaned up the bathroom, I began looking around the apartment to try finding out more about my new life, as I doubt some random entity is going to apologize about a mix-up and return me to my body. Still, at least I didn't end up as some future cannon fodder or clan member, as I'd either be doomed to die on a random C rank as a shinobi, starve as a civilian, or die in one of the future invasions. Guess I can tolerate being the ultimate punchbag if it keeps me alive. Although the growing headache is annoying, did I wake the fuzz monster when I got here? Let's see. Meditation was a way to access the prison, right? I didn't find myself before Kurama or even in the seal at all. Instead, I was in a hallway like from my home before, as if I'd simply finished walking back from shops, except it seemed to never end, and without any signs of my family that I could recall from when I left were absent. Only a faint light where I stood, which I knew wasn't from my home. There was nothing here except faint steps coming towards me from down the hallway. I decided to simply wait for them to reach me over going to them. I did have an idea as to who it'd be, as I didn't get his memories, which meant he's likely still around in his head. Sure enough, as the figure came into view, it was revealed to be Naruto, who continued approaching me only to be met with my natural response of punch to the face. Hey, why'd you hit me? How'd you get here? Where are we? Great, his first words spoken by him, and I'm already annoyed. I ignore the fool as he continues his screaming and shouting questions. Instead of wasting effort on the fool, I instead tried focusing on the surroundings, and as I did I noticed something I'd overlooked due to the brat's tantrum. The walls were slowly gaining some color. Wrong colors. Instead of matching the original hallway, this one had 2 colors each, approaching from the opposite end and stopping with us. The first was a blue that stopped at Naruto and was as if staring at waves on the sea during a storm. The other was a black that simply flowed with cracks in it to me. Occasionally a few threads came from each and mixed into a light silver? Apparently, this is going to be a merging of us, is it? Wrong. I refuse to have him influence me. A whiny brat without any originality or motivation beyond getting other fools to put up with him. During my mini-raid, the silver seems to become more solid, as hard as it is to describe, no longer looking like paper but metal. A plan quickly forms as I realize that the colors on the wall match with our current emotions. I can work with this. Shut up. I hit Naruto on the head to encourage his obedience. The blue waves also stopped, though it seemed to only be temporary, so I had to act fast. You're Naruto, right? The old man told me to come to find you. He's been worried sick. This seems to at least get his trust as I focus a little on my silver, which has started to reach the blue, but instead of mixing together, the black was able to remain unchanged as the blue began to slowly dark. Not enough for Naruto to notice, but enough to know I was right and simply had to keep him submissive to my influence, power? I'll figure it out later. Amusingly, all I needed to do was ask him to trust me and talk him into focusing on feeding the black with the blue. The idiot didn't even realize towards the end that he was fading. The last blue and silver was gone and I'd no warning before a rush of memories hit. I better be right about this. I was in darkness. All around me played pieces of Naruto's life as they were slowly pulled into me. From his first memories in the orphanage to the night he died, and I woke instead. Seems I was wrong with my initial view of the fool being useless. He gave me the knowledge I needed to at least understand everyone and even the timeline. Tomorrow a senile fool would have someone come to see if he still wanted to become a shinobi and give him the papers to officially register as an academy student. As if I'd a choice. Jinchuriki, the very name is proof that one does not. For who'd allow a Jinchuriki to stay weak? In a world of death, you've no choice but to do what you can to survive. Otherwise, you may as well have never wasted time living. As more memories play out, I only really view those with information, the frequent times that Naruto interrupted his old man during either meetings or daily work. Listening to the knowledge the Hokage freely gave Naruto as countless orphans may do without. Chakra, spiritual energy and physical energy. Mind and body. Both must be strong for you to survive this world. Naruto's body was rather advanced for a child, whether it's due to being an Uzumaki, Asura's latest failure, Kurama's chakra, or any combination is meaningless. All that matters is it is. Naruto's mind, however, was broken. A child's mind is fragile, and while he wasn't abused beyond a few drunken attempts prevented by the Uchiha police, how can a child's mind grow when they're always seeing the village's hate? In canon, his mind fractured into his happy mask, always refusing to cry, as Kakashi would say, and his dark self, the half that he buried to prevent hurting his old man. Shame that instead of that happening, I'm here. I may hate the kid, but I don't judge him just because of Kurama or a few childish reasons. I've seen canon, seen how worthless and pitiful he becomes. Even with the power to be free, he remains broken and chained. Why should I follow that path? Why put me in someone supposedly destined for that? No, my mind is stronger than that, stronger than him. Stronger than them all. At this point, the last of the memories, a day in the park with the other kids leaving. If I'm to live here, then I'll do so for now, but I'll not blindly allow myself to be chained down and broken. Either this village learns to stay out of my way or I'll burn it down and move on. I wake to a room in ruins and power running through me. Seems that my chakra devouring Naruto's caused the body to respond. At least I've access to it a little earlier than I should. Looking at the mess I caused, I decide to at least make some effort of sorting through it. After all, I did own it all now. Until I end up burning it if I see any orange. I end up piling most precious keepsakes of the old Naruto, which were mostly useless toys with a note of the date he got it and those with him. Not that he had anyone except the Hokage. I simply spend some time doing a little light stretching before I wait for whoever sent. While waiting, I experiment with my new power by trying to move my chakra through my body, focusing on improve, strengthen, growth as I do so. Chakra requires your will to control. The crazy sage used ninshu, or whatever he called it, without signs, and his sons, followers, also used chakra peacefully to aid their daily lives. Hand signs were later developed to aid in learning, and also due to the constant wars they had later on, which inevitably lead to them believing that they were needed, and so their will was bound to their misconception and later passed to their descendants. Sometime later. How long does it take to detect your Jinchuriki released some chakra? If this is the best Anbu can do, maybe I should go elsewhere? But where? The only villages to interest me are Mist Kiri, as it's run by a genocidal Jinchuriki who'd be useful to train me at best he could, except for the whole puppet role. He's likely been locked in for a few years now. The second is Cloud, Kumo, the only place able to truly unleash their Jinchuriki's potential. But they're unreliable, even when trying to kidnap a girl with inside support. How else do you bypass the rest of the Byakugan? They still fail. All they really needed was to harvest a living Hyuga, who only used taijutsu, paralyzing poison, chakra suppression seal, and a bloody medic. That's all that's really needed. Maybe I'm just reacting too strongly? Maybe I didn't release enough to detect from any Anbu guard dogs? I doubt any village acid is truly left alone. Wonder if I could actually pull off acting like Naruto? This was my only worry about being Naruto. I only needed to do it until I'm attending the academy. Then I'd be able to hide in the background, because I realize Even the other orphans have someone or at least are told if their parents were shinobi. Maybe that'll get the senile fool to at least say something beyond, talking about them won't bring them back, change anything, like he did whenever Naruto brought them up. More time later. Finally, a knock at the door breaks my creative thinking of how to harvest various bloodlines, abilities and artifacts from various clans and villages. Why does a Jinchuriki not already have a real kunai? I'd only stab this slowpoke a lot. Answering the door I see notice two things. First, there's a senile fool stood as if I'd the right to deny my dictator entry. Second, my desire to stab the slowpoke is increasing. What did he break his hip on the way? Some Hokage, maybe he had to finish his lunch? Mentally laughing at the joke I'll not get to watch again, I decide to get this visit over with. Old man, I thought you said you were going to send someone else to deliver the papers? I ask curiously. As far as I know, he shouldn't be needed for a simple formality. Now Naruto, why would I want to miss the chance to see you before your first day? Unless you no longer want to become Hokage? The senile fool laughed. I'm sure I'd laugh too, as if Naruto could afford to be anything but your tool. The only option I really had was senile fool's tool or his friends. Yay, I don't need any tongue tattoo. Thanks. No way, old man, just you watch. I'll be taking that hat from you in no time. I shout in my best, I'm an idiot, kill me and spare humanity my existence, voice, or the damn my thought hurts, call a medic, voice I'm not sure. All I'm sure about it, I wish somebody made him a mute before I took over. Then again, having to hear his own voice at that volume likely made the day or anyone who was tempted to. Apparently, ninja aren't the only merciless ones. I smirk at that. Calling them ninja truly is amusing when few if any in all the villages are even worth that title. Couple minutes of hurting my throat, voice and soul screaming later. I thought he'd never leave, I sigh in relief as I thought he have spotted my act, unless he's used to seeing Naruto's constant mask that he's no longer able to spot the signs he's gone. Deciding to think on that later, I turn my gaze to the slip of paper I held in my hand. I move over to the bedroom as the only thing mostly untouched by my awakening. Sat there, I begin thinking about what I'm to do. Should I bother with the others? Useless and naive fools that think they'll live a long life? Is there any point to doing so? I guess the only thing I should concern myself with will be the knowledge I'll gain from the academy. I won't go out of my way to interact with anyone. I'm already a young adult stuck in a world of death and madness. I refuse to lower myself to requiring kids as friends, when most of us will likely die within a month of graduating, and if I'm to survive I can't allow myself to become attached to doomed fodder. That's all we are in this world, fodder without reason or purpose. I spent most of the remaining day meditating as I continued to focus solely on my chakra, feeling it as a tingle beneath my skin as I move it around, feeling it slowly adapt to my will and obey me. I knew little about it beyond a rather basic understanding of how it's viewed in canon knowledge, but what else is there left forgotten or mistaken for facts? Fact: chakra is in all life and was once used to connect others by the crazy sage. Chakra can also be used for anything you want. Canon shows various examples from war to farming. So long as you have got a need, chakra will be of use. Forgotten: chakra is often believed to require hand signs. This is partially correct, as you may to start with. But what if you could break that limitation? Bloodlines are one such example. Most clans seem rather proud of what their blood gives them, and yet they overlook how most seem impossible to others because of it. Why? Chakra is in everyone and is energy-based, so how did their clans gain and keep it within their blood? Fact: bloodlines don't actually require blood, merely the correct energy to act as a key to those abilities. Proof: the Senju are one obvious, with the wood release being only unlocked for the one who inherits Asura's chakra. The entire clan holds the same blood, yet only one in every couple generations will get this ability due to Asura's energy being a unique key. Thinking about this and how Naruto apparently never unlocked this ability was frustrating, so instead I focused on the Uzumaki heritage. Chakra chains. Similar to the Senju's bloodline in suppressing chakra of even the strongest Biju, and yet not one person in canon uses Ito Tensai to use them? Naruto doesn't unlock his mother's ability, but some random fangirl can because she has a mental breakdown? Yet her mother couldn't or didn't. Deciding that the chakra chains are likely available, but like those with Sharingan or other bloodlines, one needs to know there's a door for the key to be of use. Karen likely heard a few tales of her former clan when young and possibly researched them under Orochimaru, considering his focus on chakra. Knowing this, I sent a small amount of chakra to my palm, picturing the chain slowly grow out, and yet after 20 minutes of waiting, nothing. Trying again but with much more chakra, along with my hate and rage at being taken from my reality to this doomed anime and placed not in a minor character or even reborn as an OC, but as one of the ones I hated most. As if something clicked, several black chains shot from my left hand and up my arm, embedding themselves into the wall and ceiling. Around them, the surface seemed to darken and crack before my lacking concentration caused them to fade away. This is an issue for the repair guy, was my final thoughts on the incident for the day as I felt the lost chakra take effect. Next day, I want a bloody kunai, better yet give me a clean one and I'll make it bloody myself. These were my relatively tame thoughts on my current situation. I just arrived at the academy and was hit by the noise. Bloody brats whining about missing their parents or bragging about being better than insert family member here. If they're going to miss them so much, leave. The gates are open and classes haven't started. As for bragging fools, shouldn't they have done all that at home or on the way? I forgot how annoying people are over even minor things. Though becoming a child soldier isn't that minor, is it? Meh, they'll be dead before it matters to them. I quickly look for any teachers to direct me towards the correct classroom. Multiple times just to prevent any attempts at affect my education. Luckily those asked all gave the same room number and I quickly went inside before I asked them for a kunai. Insert bell ringing. The bell ruined my silence as a dozen students slowly entered in either pairs or groups, though I did spot a few of the canon characters enter. Wonder how long they'll live without plot. Oh well, they'll either live and learn or not. Such happy thinking was stopped by a random teacher entering and calling the class to be silent as they take the register. Naruto's name being called only got a short pause and glanced towards me before they continued, just like everyone else. Seems I'm either going to be left alone like everyone else or ignored. Both are better than actively sabotaging their future weapon. After finishing, random teacher introduced themselves as irrelevant fool and gave a quick rundown of what each year would consist of, along with mentioning how it's unlikely for early graduations as fodder is no longer needed for a war. He may have said it differently, but that's how I understood it. Without a war depleting their forces, the Hokage is ensuring the future clan heads and weapon, me and canon characters, are full trained as best they can before sending us to die on missions, with most others being put in reserve ready for the next war. As the teacher began explaining and writing on the board behind him, I took a brief look around. Most were around 8, which is the oldest you can be. To enter any younger requires the permission of family and Hokage. Due to the graduation age being 12 years old, I have a long 6 years to work preparing for my current goal. Curing the world of these fools. Teach, please leave a kunai in your desk if you want me to put these failures down. I'll even kill you so you aren't put through any torture. One boring, murder-inducing lesson later. I sat in the classroom slowly eating my lunch while the other student wasted time outside playing games and gathering meat shields. I mean, friends for life. Ha ha ha, must be aiming for a rather short one, that kid. I spent some time trying to form a small chain with less chakra, or at least without focusing so much, but can only manifest a little chakra that looks more like a mist than a chain before it fades. Seems once you unlock your bloodline, it must be worked on to gain the strength it holds when you bust the door, so to speak. Basically a glimpse of how powerful it can be once you're at least competent enough to form it. Guess I'll have to spend more time on it than how to kill these kids. Truly a cruel world. I release a sigh as I lie on my desk. Apparently, the years here will mostly be the same, but with increasing difficulty later on, with chakra being unlocked this year, but left alone for our bodies to adapt to the sudden energy. According to the board, the irrelevant fool was writing on during our lesson. Our class plan in the academy is rather simply or essentially narrowed down to: first year, mostly theory, maths, history of famous shinobi and rules of the Konoha and of ninja. Taijutsu warm-ups and light training with the teacher will be added after the first week to replace former free periods, and chakra is unlocked about halfway through the year depending on taijutsu performance. Second year, theory becomes more chakra focused as we begin the leaf exercise and increase physical training. Third year, chakra exercise has amount of leaves increased and teacher uses weak jutsu to blow the leaf randomly to further distract a student and disrupt concentration. Fourth year, physical training takes a large increase, having to be able to hit the teacher, limited to average genin capabilities, and able to try for graduation as of this year. 5th year. Most lessons are refreshers and mostly replaced by physical training, chakra training and in-depth knowledge of current country relations. 6th year. Same as last year, but the refreshers stop after 2nd week and only return during the final month. Failure to graduate it after this year results in being kicked from program. Basic Academy schedule. 6:30 a.m. Building opens along with library, only available for those with chakra unlocked. Basically, clan are halfway through first year to ensure the student is committed to being a ninja. 7:30 a.m. Arrive in classroom. 8 a.m. Teacher does register and begins theory lessons. 10:30 a.m. Teacher allows break, later replaced with chakra exercise. 11 a.m. Teacher starts physical warm-up and training. Starting in the 2nd year, it will be followed by a short spar with each student to check progress and understanding before giving advice on how to improve. 12:30 p.m. Lunch. 1 p.m. Afternoon register and history lessons. 2:30 p.m. Teacher moves to maths and geography. 3 p.m. Teacher allows final break, later replaced with lowest jutsu for surviving, camping, traveling, from lighting fires to making the ground more stable to set up camp. 4 p.m. Physical training, exercise. In the 2nd year, a spar will be included for students to try heat advice and see if they understood correctly. 4:30 p.m. Teacher ends classes with questions for students based on subjects and allows those who answer to leave first. 6 p.m. Academy library closes. I hate this world so much right now. So much bloody reading. The physical aspects aren't much trouble considering my life and Naruto's superior body. Though there's also the chance of them later improving or editing this depending on the average level of our class. Wonder if breaking the kids early will allow me to spend more time in the library instead? Well, best to just suffer through these lessons and spend all free time learning what's available and training to at least be capable of achieving results before moving to something else. Maybe spend time after library closes to focus more on chakra control. Don't want to follow canon and waste so much for little to no gain. So far I've mostly tried to avoid attention from both students and teachers, even though I had at least gotten to the point I wouldn't immediately shatter my mirror upon seeing a stranger's face. My focus on surviving and favoring the library and its books over wasting time with the kids, playing, has led to them thinking of me as the weird kid. As if they have the right to think I'm weird when they think becoming a murdering thief for money is how they'll meet someone to spend their life with. Heroes? Damsels? These foolish brats know nothing of what they're going to be doing. I've spent the last year focusing entirely on my control, along with my chains, and can finally purposely call up to 4 of them at any time I desire. To continue working in this, I usually create them as thin as I can and small enough to have 2 wrapped around each arm ready to shoot out my sleeve, just in case of any surprises. I've also managed to get a decent head start on taijutsu through the library books that I'm allowed access to. I'm at least confident in holding my own and not letting anyone realize I could match any civilians in pure skill even if they got together. The clan children, however, are harder to know for sure, but outside of the physically focused such as the Uchiha, Hyuga, Inuzuka and Akamichi clans, I'm at least capable of making them sweat. When combined with my new body's endurance and recovery rate, I'd likely beat them should I manage to avoid being taken down early. During the spars, I try to keep an eye on the clan and civilian kids' progress and achieve being in the middle, but occasionally get lucky with moving further up the ranks only to once again fall back down. Depends on how annoying the brats were earlier. One thing that has caught my attention, however, is the date, 13th of July. According to what I recall, the massacre of the Uchiha is between Itachi being 13 and Sasuke turning 8. Meaning within 2 weeks the Uchiha will be dead. To take advantage of this, I've kept an eye on any Uchiha attending the academy lately, while some in their final year do seem to be getting increasingly jumpy as the week goes by. The rest seem unaware of the coming mess. Not much longer. Last academy day of the week. Finally, I heard a certain Uchiha has committed suicide. I'd hoped I'd have been able to prepare more, but I've at least gotten a little time recreating Naruto's henge, which seems to simply require more chakra than the original does to create a more durable shell around the user and at least take a couple of hits. Today is a Friday, meaning I can actually risk a few injuries to myself with the weekend to recover before they're noticed. Now, which Uchiha should I choose? Oh, that one has red eyes. I let a little amusement show before focusing on my chosen target. He's just a typical Uchiha, Pale skin with black hair and eyes and an obvious ego problem with how he's bragging to the others over his eyes. Fool doesn't know that's why I chose him. This is going to be so much fun. Same day a couple hours later. During my first year at the academy, I mostly focused on control and trying to better understand or apply chakra. One of the things I tried to gain was suppressing it to hide from censors like Aruka in my final year. I failed in the typical way simply because of too much even at such a young age. However, I did manage an acceptable version using my knowledge of Naruto's henge and applying it to my will to not be noticed. This allowed me to create a shell of chakra around myself that blocks any chakra escaping as far as I know. In my second year, I've mostly used this technique to follow a few Uchiha to find the best spot for what I'm about to do. I also experimented with my chains, finding out how much difference their thickness changes them. And aside from the slight increase of chakra, they also become stronger but unable to be hidden without having to wear more baggy clothing. I did like how I could make the end sharper though. I'm drawn from my education by the arrival of the generic Uchiha passing through the playground as a shortcut towards me. I'm currently hidden in the shadows of a nearby alleyway, which he'll need to pass to get home. I briefly consider if I should just leave him alone? Let him go home and wake to the dying screams of his beloved clan? But that serves no purpose for me. What's the point of letting an anime play out when you defy its path? As he passes in front of me, my presence causing him to jump back in surprise, I release my chains at him, wrapping them around his limbs and launching him into the wall behind him. That's all it took to bring the mighty Uchiha down? Like I said, generic. I quickly have my chains wrap around him completely, no longer just the limbs but his torso and one through his mouth. Just in case he decides to wake. With him currently secure, I head into the nearby forest. That's part of the playground. Short trip into forest later. A good thing about this location was that despite being fairly small to an actual forest is that it's distant enough to prevent any noise from screams or fights. Anything capable of being heard is always dismissed as some kids messing about late at night. This is the main reason why I chose the playground. No one expects an innocent kid to be murdered where they all play with so many adults watching. I dropped my guest on the ground, causing a slight groan to be muffled by the chain, and sit on a nearby log beside the generic Uchiha as another of his clan, one who'd left early today due to suddenly getting sick. Funny how some poisons are easy to access in place teaching about them. A smack across their face does the trick, and after a little freak out, the generic Uchiha is staring at me, while the sick Uchiha is whimpering due to the broken bones I gave him. Can't risk one escaping while focusing on the other, and this way they won't leave the other to die considering their family. If he said anything important it was blocked by the chain, so at least he's nice enough to let me know that mostly works should I be unable to just gag whatever fool I catch in the future. After a couple of minutes of probable ranting, he falls silent and simply glares at me with his red eyes activating. Perfect. You know I really don't like wasting time or effort. So I'll skip the pointless talk. You're here to help me out with my experiment, and if you don't I'll kill you and get your friend here to help instead. Or is that family? Clan relations between members wasn't something I wasted time on. Apparently this makes his eyes widen and tears to escape him. Maybe I should have broken his bones and left Sickly chained? Sickly was hardly able to run after all. Now I'm not sure if you know, but tonight your clan goes extinct. Apparently Itachi is going to kill you all, and I've no interest wasting such a nice change to my growing boredom. All you need to do to survive and warn your clan to prevent their deaths is become a true shinobi, kill your emotions. And kill your poisoned friend there. I simply wait as he goes through the obvious denial, rage and fear. Until he finally remembers his clan's view of everything being for the clan and the academy train you to not let emotion prevent you from achieving your mission goals. While this doesn't work as effectively for most civilians, the Uchiha are all about serving their clan, and if one must kill a member to save the others, that's inevitably what they'll do. Finally, he looks at the sick Uchiha, who's also broken down into tears as they each share a nod, and Sickly manages to gather the strength to say 3 words that almost make me personally kill him. Save the Uchiha. I relaxed the chains for generic to slowly move his hand into his pouch to grasp his kunai. Bringing it up, I immediately lock his limbs in place once more. Like I didn't think he'd try a last attempt to save his friend. Guess I'll help you along. With a quick gesture to Sickly, my chains respond, slowly moving generic to be stood over him, kunai ready. All generic can do is break into more tears. Seems they can cry endlessly in these bloody anime. My will hears my desire and responds. Seconds later, I've sat back on my log again, no longer paying attention to Sickly or Generic, who is staring at his former friend, not even noticing I just helped him with his precious eyes. How ungrateful. I slowly rise and walk over to them, reaching down to grasp the kunai with one hand as my other grabs Generic's face, forcing him to look at me. You know I did you a favor, right? Sickly got a quick death and you achieved the Mangekyo Sharingan, putting you on the same level as Itachi, Shisui and Fugaku Uchiha. In terms of eyes anyway. I didn't want to do any of this. Killing is a pointless thing when the victim would inevitably die anyway. But isn't it better to give someone's death a purpose? Sickly had been doomed the instant he was mistaken for food poisoning, and you'd have gone home, only to die as another casket in the ground. I make my chain break his left leg, causing him to cry out against the chain gag. The chain then releases the useless limb, moving behind my log to grab a small bag by the handle and bring to me. In case you haven't noticed the obvious, I can't actually let you go. Even if I did, all you get is killed the instant you revealed you killed your friend, as the Mangekyo is a secret your elders have hidden to prevent such actions. All I can do for your life to have meaning is take those eyes for myself and put them to better use than you ever could. With these last words to the generic Uchiha, get a kunai to the heart, which I then release and grab a jar with some of the fluid used to preserve eyes and other organs that I'd managed to find in the few medical books, as it wasn't too important as no one saw the need to hide it. Maybe they didn't think a student would try acquiring a pair of eyes? Either way, I carefully plucked them out as I willed my chains to pierce his chest and begin to devour him along with Sickly. A fun little fact about the Uzumaki's chakra chains: they can each provide a unique trait, such Kushina's or Midas being able to suppress a Biju's chakra. I experimented with what else they're capable of and quickly found mine were more suited to devouring chakra, and with chakra being both physical and spiritual energy, I could use my chains to break down anything with chakra, no matter how little, and gain a little for myself. Essentially, their soul is broken into pieces and stored within my own to later sort through, as I did with Naruto upon devouring his chakra for myself. As I stare at my jar in my hand with two red eyes staring back, I can't help but glance at my other hand. The one with a child's blood dripping from it. I'd say I'm sorry, but in my view, you were dead before I arrived. To escape this reality, one must be willing to sacrifice everything. But this thought doesn't stop the glare from within my jar. Another step closer to my reality. It's been only a year since the Uchiha had been put down. A year, and everyone seems to have forgotten all their suspicions and hate towards the clan over simple rumors and paranoia. Ever since that night, the former clan has gone from scapegoat to founding clan once again. Amusing considering why they are gone is due to them isolating and pushing them into a corner and being shocked when they had enough. Still, as I look around my fellow cannon fodder, it's obvious as to how most civilians have reacted, as the classroom with dozens has gone to about 24. Over 30 kids pulled from their future grave, while myself, the clan children, and the delusional fangirls remain. Still, it seems that most clans decided to send their children to learn at the start of this year. So now the clans outnumber the civilians in the room for possibly the first time in decades. Our teacher has also begun pushing us harder, or at least making the attempt, but Sasuke's fangirls have their families complain about being too aggressive on them. Guess they'd rather stand over a grave than have them realize this is a world of war, death and ruin. Nothing they do to protect them in the academy will spare them a kunai to their chest in battle, but that's their choice. This year has allowed most of the Hokage's attention to be redirected. While he previously visited Naruto as a way to relax in the past, the senile fool must now deal with various other countries and villages testing Konoha's borders. Even the Fire Lord worries for Konoha's future now the second founding clan is gone, wiped out in a single night by a boy only 13? How could they expect to not lose what reputation they had managed to build? Sasuke is at least silent about his genius brother. If I'd known he'd also draw away most of the Hokage's time, I'd have helped move the massacre along. Maybe collected more than just Generic and Sickly's eyes. A pair of Mangekyo Sharingan and a plain pair. Useful with faking a death or two and also giving me a way to hopefully escape should need it. I managed to get my control of chakra to the point I can walk on both walls and water, Turns out being younger with less chakra allows control to build much easier but is typically ignored as hardly any students have enough chakra to make it necessary. My chains can also form as dozens of the small and thin chains I use for quick and surprise attacks and about half that for the common thicker chains for restraint and suppression. My constant time in the library has also paid off greatly as I've gotten a much greater mastery of the Academy Taijutsu, if it's even worth that name, along with a grasp on the more important information, the basics to future specializations. Specifically medical jutsu and ninjutsu. Though I mostly seem able to, my chakra to do whatever I want, I need to at least know how to change my chakra to the necessary state at least once before that door is available in the future. This has allowed me to slowly create a space underground where I originally harvested 2 animals that were about to be sent to the slaughterhouse anyway. It's nothing too noteworthy at the moment, merely a large space with some of the ground raised to be a table in the center and around the edges of the room. I also raised some ground to act as a chair in a few areas to rest during my little experiments. In the center of each wall is a small hallway, being formed to slowly expand into more rooms as needed, along with potent escape routes, should I be discovered too soon. Most of the tables are empty still, but there are currently 2 I'm using. The first is one I've shaped to be more like a bookstand to place various books I've copied or claimed from the library and students respectively. And the second is the central table, which currently has my latest volunteer I collected from the alleyway. Apparently, he had no family to stay with and moved away from his former spot nearer to the clans after they became more cautious towards those around their homes, as if they expect someone to suddenly target them? Either way, he was rather weak even before I broke his limbs and transported him here. Guess he's never had his chakra activated, such a wasted fool. Beside the broken fool were 2 simply jars holding a pair of eyes each. I wanted to see if this man would be able to help me out. The Sharingan is an overreacted reality hack once it's active at any rate, the sacrifice of 1 eye for only 10 seconds to play God? However, the eye only goes blind due to it being overloaded with yin chakra, so what if I insert my yang? Would that change anything? These questions keep taunting me. Should I achieve my breakthrough, I'll be able to break the walls of this reality to potentially reach others. I could return to my body, my life, my home. And all that was in my way? A pair of child's eyes that never end their glares towards me, as if they'd have lived had I ignored the chance to leave. Well, best get started. A small smile forms at the thought of being myself once more. So old man, ready to continue? A sickly green chakra flows onto my left hand as I raise it to his broken face. Luckily I already dealt with the tear ducts or he could contaminate my work. 3 years later, I moved towards my apartment door. My form starts to shift into the disgusting form I am once again trapped in. I gained this ability to shift through my work on the Izanagi from the Uchiha, and while it's not the success I'd aimed for, my main use of shifting is currently to either indulge myself in my former appearance along with hiding any effect of my experiments for as long as I can, dropping it only I'm safely within my hideout. A consequence of hating my reflection, even after getting used to it, is that my will that I've managed to attune to myself is quick to react to being shackled to an image of a child that was long since devoured. As I walk to the academy, not at all bothering to care for the foolish cowards that flinch upon seeing me and quickly move out my way. Odd, you'd think Naruto no longer pranking them endlessly along with not assaulting their ears would get them to act their age? Then again, why expect background figures in an anime to be mature? My mistake. I've managed to ease myself through the academy years as nothing unique, just a boy training to kill as many as possible until I myself am cut down. Granted, I'm a little ahead there considering my experiments and what I did with sickly and generic. I wonder if I've at least got time to see the latest to intrude upon my alleyway? As if in response to this thought, my chakra chains form beneath my clothes, black trousers and long-sleeved top, ready to devour all who try. Academy entrance. The academy has long since exhausted its value as an information source. Any books their students can access I have read at least twice over my time here and finally get to be free or at least closer to it, as well the information has led to me being able to claim unique abilities like my ability to shift my form beyond any henge or simple jutsu could achieve. All around me is cannon fodder, bragging how they'll either do at the academy or the final exams to graduate. Shame I can't use anyone trained with chakra. My experiments could have been much greater if that was an option. Sadly, I seem to have picked up a stalker sometime during the recent years, a worthless weakling. I can feel her presence following like a puppy as I approach the classroom. Scarface better get here soon, otherwise they'll have a new massacre to deal with. If they survive, of course. Inside classroom. Upon entering, I calmly ignore any stares as I head towards the back right corner, able to see any who enter straight away through both the door and windows. Sure enough, a stuttering stalker enters soon after and quickly stumbles to her spot second row in front of me. No Byakugan staring at me from her. With my stalker unable to muster the courage to even glance at me in her typical fashion of only doing so from a hidden location and always preventing me from actually doing more than a little revision of combat stances or reading old books in an attempt to not deal with her through my preferred kunai method. Beyond the stalker somehow still focusing her delusions on me, I have managed to avoid mostly dealing with everyone outside of the obvious spar, which I tend to win unless it's Sasuke. Him I forfeit after a couple of minutes, as winning would be worse than just losing. Winning would result in Sasuke thinking we're rivals and possibly further challenging me, whilst losing results in taking obvious hits until the match ends and I refuse to not get a couple of hits to his face. He may have lost a tooth and had his nose broken the one time he tried his "I'm the best" act. That tooth and nosebleed were rather useful too. Still, the constant fangirls of Sasuke are a pain. I've even placed a paper on the teacher's desk of how he should at least try to show them the truth of their future should they pass without any reality check. Ah, here comes the screeching duo. Fangirls scream over a seat for 5 minutes before realizing he's got another at the other side later. Kunai to the throat, but only enough to damage their vocals? But then I'd have to deal with the parents that gave them those voices. My thoughts towards saving my ears is interrupted by Scarface arriving with Snake Fanatic. "All right class, settle down." His calm request is as always ignored, resulting in his frequent balloon scream which has everyone both silent and death instantly. Kunai to the balloon it is. Another planned murder in class register later. Okay, so the tests were rather pitiful. First was a paper test so easy that even the fangirls passed, which considering they likely ignored everything to stare at duck butt is saying a lot about the academy. The second was a series of throwing tests, mostly just shuriken and kunai with the option to try senbon should you wish to earn a little bonus, if you fear failing. And the last part is the most obvious part that anyone who's seen canon can predict. That's right, it's the useless jutsu part. However, since it's the last names deciding our order of entry, I'm wasting my time as every other student both from my year and those who've at least 4 years here from the years below go first. Maybe I should have used the excuse of not wanting to disrespect a fallen clan to at least change my last name. It would have meant they'd need to reveal my mother was an Uzumaki and therefore her name were granted permission and allowed me to change it to something like Akatsuki? Granted, I'd only do that for amusement and to skip ahead in this A to Z list before changing it back. While waiting for my turn to pass or fail, I'm once more drawn to a choice I've been going back and forth over if it's worth the aftermath. Do the canon opening or not? If I fail, the Snake fan will most likely follow the canon plot of granting me shadow clones and allow me to rapidly commit experiments while having my stuttering stalker act as my alibi instead of simply an ignorant hindrance to them. Plus I could, accidentally, kunai Scarface. But should I choose to pass, I could avoid potentially drawing the senile fool's attention to me after enjoying a couple of years free from his bullshit. Decisions. Guess I can suffer this once. After all, how many chances do you get to access the Hokage's scrolls? Also, while I doubt anything on it is usable without some sacrifice of yourself or another, I'm at least getting a better clone I'd otherwise lack unless I remain loyal until I'm promoted to at least Jonin? Maybe even Anbu, depending on how they decide who learns such a jutsu. Yuto? Naruto. An unpleasant voice draws my attention before my thoughts drifted too far from my original dilemma. Looking towards the voice, I see Scarface stood impatiently at the door to the examination room. "Sorry, sir. I got a little lost thinking about the exams. Is it already my turn?" "What?" I can't exactly say. I'm thinking if I should waste effort taking a forbidden scroll for his friend to get away with its information and allow a reason to kill them both. Also, I get to guilt trip the leader over Kurama to at least give me the name of Naruto's mother. Hard to claim they're irrelevant when you realize I've had access to her bloodline for years. It's alright Naruto, I understand how stressful these exams can be. Just do your best, okay? His smile as if he's helped me has just sealed his fate. This draws a smile from me as I follow him inside and get into position as I guess he technically has. He's going to die regardless of what else I do, he dies. I always did hate side characters in most anime. Okay Naruto, you just stand in the center there and we'll get started. I simply nod as I feel my chakra respond to my will. Okay Naruto, let's get started. First perform the henge. I'm sorry Naruto, but if you can't make a functioning clone then you can't pass. These words would have normally resulted in the recipient's hopes and dreams being shattered. However, unlike those who think not becoming cannon fodder, I've already fully taken advantage to learn everything I could from the academy, and the only reason to pass is the potential to speed up my gains beyond what I'd achieve from scratch. I was sure it'd work this time. Are you sure I can't give it just one more try, sir? This request was simply for Snake Fan to jump in, and from his face, he was about to do just that at any moment. Come now, Iruka, surely we can make an exception just this once? He has managed to do well with the other parts of the exam. This was actually fairly reasonable to request, as unlike the original Naruto, I learned all I could and have refused to do anything below at least average for civilians. However, it seems that unlike Lee, I'd not gotten anyone to personally vouch for me among the potential Jonin that have been secretly watching through a secret hole like Kakashi or under a henge or genjutsu for some unknowns. This had better be the one-time canon is useful to follow. I really hate acting like such a simple jutsu isn't within my reach. Damn, I seem to have missed Iruka's reasoning, when he should remember I did perform it perfectly as required just days ago during revision. Thank you for trying, sir, but if you don't mind, I'd at least like to avoid the others, and the library is still open despite the exams. I ask this not to simply move this whole thing on, but alert Snake Fan to where to find me for his cunning plan. That isn't even original considering it's what another Jonin did for a fake lightsaber of the second Hokage. I understand, but maybe you could always request another attempt from administration should you manage to create a clone. With Iruka's last piece of helpful advice, I am finally able to again be free for a few minutes of reading. Maybe the library will at least be empty of students? They are all either in class or waiting for their families, mostly anyway. Library. I'd only been seated almost half an hour and gotten close to finishing my current medical book on how to use chakra for replacement body parts, a curious thing to leave in an academy library. Probably due to being easier to just leave the library with the information needed for wars, then remove certain books as the war becomes openly fought over simple sabotage and information gathering. Sadly, the book is one I've read a few times during my time here, as years of avoiding everyone's offered friendship when they'll just die in the end has allowed plenty of time to focus on reading the dozens of books available for academy students. Naruto, are you in here? A voice called from the direction of the door to the right of my position as I've done my typical act of sitting where no one can approach without being noticed. No? Why would I be somewhere I told them I'd be? Snake reject. Alright. I may have wanted this moron to give me access to a forbidden scroll. If Iruka hadn't irritated me earlier, I would have failed simply to lower the amount of stupidity this village seems to cultivate daily. Over here, sir, I call calmly, refusing to move the book covering my face, not upset despite how he'll likely take it. I simply hate leaving a book unfinished regardless of how many times I've technically finished it in the past. As Snake Reject reaches me, I can see the obvious hate in his eyes despite his smile, hard to hide something I spent my original life carefully observing people for hidden agenda as a result of situations I had to deal with and haven't stopped here. In fact, it's gotten easier to spot with an entire village to learn their various methods to do so. Still, this is a guy who killed his team and managed to get away with only being a suspected traitor and placed as a teacher. Another sign of Konoha falling to ruin. Ah Naruto, I'm glad I could find you here. I wasn't sure if you'd simply wanted to leave without being spotted, as the only one to fail to create a clone. This is actually a valid point as to why he wasn't faster to locate me and had to call out. It's even technically true, as I did use it to leave with as little drama as possible. Still not stopping my kunai to his nuts though. Teacher, did you perhaps manage to get the others to reconsider? I struggled to put much emotion in my voice, but it seems he's either taken it as trying to hold back my sadness, or too focused on how close to power he believes himself to be. Still, he at least shows himself to be able to change his script to suit what I say, so maybe he could have been competent before stagnating and getting sloppy in terms of skills. I did Naruto, but only partially. You see, while Iruka does see himself in you as a fellow orphan, he can't allow it to affect his judgment, and so I instead talked him into another test. At this point I managed to get a matching smile. I do, after all, like him being more original than repeating canon. That's great news, but won't it have the same result as I've not yet had time to practice my hench? Maybe I'll only torture him a lot? I could always use a rug when he becomes a furry after the invasion. These thoughts of mercy are immediately ruined by his next words. True, but that'd be if the exam wasn't changed to a more practical one. Fairly simple for someone of your skills in stealth and henge. It'll be more difficult as you'll face a mock mission scenario as your exam and be marked by how well you stick to the mission and deal with potential interference. Yes, this is all still original and even better reasoned than a secret exam, but I really don't like him mentioning what my skills are. I'll have you know I'm also great with weapons, just pass me a kunai and I'll show you. This offer will have to wait for our next meeting, as I want to see how a bunch of me's can do with some of me keeping him alive through it all. While that's indeed a relief to hear I'm not just being set up to fail, you still haven't given any information of what exactly I'll have to do as part of this mission. He shows little response to my slight emphasis of set up, and simply reaches into his back pocket to retrieve a folded slip of paper. This contains both the mission and some relevant information for you to succeed. I could add too much according to the other examiner's limitations to prevent accusations of unfair favoritism. But so long as you do well enough to get one of them on your side, I'm sure you'll pass with no trouble at all. With his piece said and the slip handed over, he quickly leaves to no doubt prepare for what he believes will be his departure from the village. As I open the paper I note one simple thing. This is going to be a long night. My smile finally becomes less fake as I begin planning how to deal with the Hokage without resorting to canon, as that's both degrading and disgraceful if I must rely on a failure's method. Unless I get creative. Nightfall. Before I went to the Hokage's tower I risked a short stop at my hideout to collect a few weapon pouches I'd both bought and gathered from training grounds they'd been left at. Along with a little package for the Hokage should he show, which he'd likely not appreciate but he'd probably live. Maybe? Seems while Snake Reject has given me accurate information on how to infiltrate the building, I actually don't need to bother sneaking when there's a door right there. Shifting from my former Naruto form I begin making my way towards the door, and as expected, while a few give a few greetings to their beloved Hokage, I'm otherwise left to enter without any trouble. Even the secretary, who's drifting into a little nap, only glanced up and acted as if they were working until I passed by. Okay. So the scroll is within the side room on the right wall. However, I assuming there at least a security seal on either it or the scroll itself should it leave its location without first being deactivated, so I'll have to leave a note for the fool to make him sympathetic by thinking I'm just trying to prove myself by revealing a traitor. I shift back into my blonde mask and make my way over to his desk to borrow some of the paper used for mission assignments. Writing a quick summary of how I was failed due to the Snake Reject offering me information that he denied me and how he granted me an alternative to the exam my chakra apparently prevented me from passing. I also claimed to have came here to try report his suspicious actions, but when he couldn't see me I simply decided on exposing him myself. A believable excuse and reasoning considering most orphans are told what little is known about their family even if they couldn't find anything beyond criminal, instead of nothing but it not changing anything. It also hinted at my chakra reserves preventing me from creating clones when I could, as a slight against him considering it's something he should have considered. The note is then pinned to his chair with a kunai to prevent him from sitting on it for him to find when he tries sitting down after alerting his shinobi. I made my way over to the door and took a deep breath. I'll have to be quick to prevent him finding me too early, so long as I get out in time he'll be unable to locate me before. I rush in, grab the scroll from its pedestal it's foolishly been placed on, and head out. The Hokage does enter as I'm leaving, but beyond a short glance at me I'm out. I may have dropped a little prank Naruto used once to temporarily blind him and call out check his chair. An hour of running later, I was making my way to the location I was supposed to meet Snake Reject, overrated scroll on my back and annoying alarms going off behind me. Hopefully, he listened to me this time. If not, I can always leave Konoha through shifting in Kurama's chakra when I get around to waking the waste of power. Upon reaching the location I stop and quickly unseal the scroll and unwrap it. Sure enough, Beyond the scroll contains jutsu requiring a sacrifice, either personal or a victim, and the occasional jutsu invented by the Hokages during their lives. Sadly, no Hiraishin as well placed as a vague description of how it works. The second didn't allow it to be added, and I'm guessing it's likely why Minato's was so different besides having a fangirl Uzumaki helping him recreate it. The shadow clone variations are all listed together, and I quickly set to work memorizing them before I attempt any. Hours later, I've finally managed to master 3 versions of the shadow clone. The first is the obvious clones that transfer their memories back, and I'm at least lucky enough that my mental state isn't as messy as Naruto's, as the scroll does warn about how they can act on buried emotions, and Naruto buried most his negative emotions to the point of insanity. My second was of course the kunai application to rain death upon the trees, and wasn't too difficult for my clone to apply this knowledge to shuriken. Bloody traitor to the kunai. Naturally, I fixed this blasphemous clone through kunai to the back and moved on. The final one I got down was the explosive clones, and really just require the clone to compress their chakra until it reaches critical, upon which it'll rush back out at great speed and cause the explosion it's known for. Sadly, my attempts at exploding kunai were interrupted by canon. I swear it always interrupts the good things in life. Naruto, there you are. Do you understand what it is you've done? Canon, why do you persist in this fool being here? Even if I'd forgotten the Hokage watching the end, I'm still going to kill him, just during the invasion instead. Canon may have bought Scarface more time, but he'd die. It's just a matter of how many brats I've to silence afterward I'm unsure of. You know, I think you don't understand what you've done. Befriending a traitor and not even considering my failure to achieve a clone was fake when you saw me succeed in class. However, before I can continue, Snake rejects shuriken appear, aimed towards Scarface. Interruption by Snake reject. So you managed to find him before me, Iruka? And even with me having the location beforehand. Seems someone isn't in a good mood. Full could have tried tricking his friend into aiding him against me before stabbing him in the back. No wonder he lost to Naruto's clones. Even Kimimaro did better, and he'd little strength due to his sickness, leaving him bedridden for weeks at least. Mizuki? What do you mean? How do you know where to find Naruto? Once more Iruka lets his friendship interrupt his ninja training of analyzing the situation. A failed student he suddenly speaks for during the exam, managing to infiltrate the seat of power for the village leader and know exactly where to find him. How hard is it to see traitors and friends in this bloody anime? Do I really have to spell it out for him? Kunai, I might forget the Hokage is watching and use you to see if Iruka would believe I'm a monster if I start skinning him alive. My rapidly darkening mood triggers my chakra to respond as my once docile chains shoot forth from my sleeves towards Mizuki, aiming to quickly capture him. Only for him to narrowly escape as he jumps to the side, throwing a few shuriken to block the chains when the turn to follow. Worth a try to capture you alive, Snake reject. But I guess a dead traitor is better than a living one. I will my chains to continue the chase, slowly shattering the surrounding trees as they do, hindering his available hiding spots and inevitably causing him to use all his weapons. Scarface, perhaps you should quit? If you couldn't tell, the traitor's attack earlier was aimed to kill or incapacitate you so he could attempt to access this scroll. I may be letting myself reveal a little more than I'd prefer, but frankly, I'm done with this canon plot, as I've already gotten all I could from the scroll, and what I can't use for now can be worked on later. Scarface? Iruka seemed to be either confused as to why I'm calling his loyal friend a traitor, or he's just genuinely ignorant to his scarred face. But it's pointless to try finding out which it was, as Mizuki makes his presence known beyond the occasional swearing and insult he'd direct towards us. Probably saw the cuts he received during his close calls, have the surrounding skin seem to rot, and realize he needs an advantage or at least distraction to turn this around. Traitor? You damn brat. How'd you like to know why no one cares for you? Not even Iruka here? All you need to do is stop these chains of yours and I give you the answer you've been denied your entire life. Mizuki says, and since I need him to reveal this to me for my future freak out, I stop my chains long enough for him to land on a tree branch further away from them and allowing him to catch his breath before my chains begin surrounding him from all directions. Oh, and what is this reason that you think it'd let you escape alive? I keep my chains ready to react while recalling 4 of them to intercept any surprise attacks. 2 more chains slowly formed beneath my trousers and begin traveling through the ground, just a precaution. Well, Naruto, What do you know of the Kyuubi's assault the day you were born? That's right, tell me so I can kill you for no longer being useful. What are you on about that for? Everyone hears that story every year. It attacked and Konoha lost its Hokage in a sacrificial jutsu to stop it. He also naively sealed the yang half containing its hate and malice into his own son. Truly a genius idea. Sarcasm? Obviously. Stop, Mizuki. Lord Hokage forbade it. Apparently traitors aren't expected to break laws? Kunai, please stop tempting me. Just wait until we can get away with it. Ha ha ha. What's wrong, Iruka? Scared the demon will suddenly not be so loyal? At this, Iruka tries a futile attempt at charging his former friend, only throwing a few kunai that were quickly countered by Mizuki's shuriken, which also pierces his left arm, distracting him from Mizuki to then kick Iruka back down to the ground. No, he wasted kunai. Okay, he's dead. Though now I am going to see how much pain he gets to enjoy first. My chains begin closing in. Already the two underneath us has reached his tree and slowly cutting their way through the bark. Just stay down, Iruka, we both know I've always been better than you. You have after all remained as a teacher for a year whilst I've only recently been forced to. Of course, he can't avoid bragging like the children they're supposed to teach. Is bragging contagious in this anime? I'll have to avoid or put them down should I encounter them, just in case. You see, Naruto, the Kyuubi couldn't be simply killed as it'd just reform and try again. So the Hokage gave his life to render it powerless, to ensure that it'd never again threaten his village. And he did this by sealing it away into a newborn child. Into you. Do you see now, Naruto? You're the Kyuubi, and they've kept you weak because they fear you. Mizuki, how could you do this? Betray the village? Iruka is apparently fine despite the injuries he'd taken, so at least they weren't likely to be serious. Shut up, Iruka. I'm done with this weak village. I'm going somewhere that respects men like me. Men who seek power, and don't have to suffer for doing what's necessary to survive. All I need to do this is that scroll. Okay, if that's all, I'm going to kill you now, Snake Reject. Try to at least amuse me, okay? With that, my chains are immediately flooded with chakra, making them grow in size and speed and obliterate the area Mizuki once stood. This time Mizuki shows he's got some worth as a shinobi as he quickly begins launching his Fuma Shuriken towards myself and Iruka, infusing chakra into it to prevent my chains simply batting it aside as it cuts a line straight through them. Seems I need to use more chakra to counter what my opponents use on their weapons. I'm about to use my defense chains to lift me over it when Iruka manages to snap back to reality, showing his time in Anbu may not have been such a waste after all. However, speaking of waste, I'm wasting my time. Hey, Snake Reject? I'm bored, so how about a magic trick? My chakra begins to surface as a black cloak forms around me and my chains, granting a shadowed afterimage to follow behind them and my voice to take a darker, demon shift. Now you see one, and now my chakra bursts forth, a tide of shadow that temporarily results in pure darkness for all who watch. And upon being able to see, a legion of my shadow clones, all with the same chakra code as myself, with countless chains at the ready, and as one my clones speak. You see many. One beating later, I stand leaning against a broken tree, the once unmarked clearing now filled with signs of battle. The trees severed in Mizuki's attempts to run, hide, or just buy time to rest. Their branches reduced to splinters that have pierced Mizuki's arms and even legs from when my chains smashed through them and into him. And along the ground were whatever shuriken Mizuki managed to unleash and the few kunai Iruka wasted in his earlier attempt to prevent an S-ranked secret from being revealed. A secret I'd known before I was ever here. Maybe I went a little dramatic, but if I didn't, I'd have wasted even more time cleaning up Konoha's most recent failure. I glance around and note how I could improve my chains in the future for greater efficiency. Meanwhile, Iruka stands a few feet in front of me, staring down at what was once his childhood friend, now a splinter-filled corpse that's rapidly being reduced to dust from the effects of his student's strange chains. A single tear rolls down his right cheek as he remembers all their times together and wonders how he'll break the news to his fiancée and how there won't even be a body to bury due to how he was taken down. He turns to me, and as he opens his mouth to speak, he's suddenly prevented by the appearance of 3 Anbu. I better get that bloody pass or I'll be devouring many more this night. Hokage's tower that same night. So Naruto, are you ready to tell me why exactly you didn't report a traitor to me? And instead decided to confront him by yourself? Seems he's losing his memory, as I'm certain I wasted time on a note that should be under his ass with a kunai if he missed it. Would talking about it change the past? Hokage? I state this while keeping both my expression and tone blank, as I stare straight at him. Naruto, this isn't the time to be childish. Do you have any idea of the consequences of your actions tonight? For you? For Konoha? Childish? I'm simply going by your chosen response to me every time I asked for what you gave every orphan in this bloody village. Except me. I have to pause for a moment to prevent my chakra from lashing out, because as much as I like to torment this fool, there is a limit to which I can hit before he'll act against me. Why should I give you an answer that you think is important when you denied me the basic right to know my family's name? However, I like to think of myself as fairly reasonable despite you and your village's decisions regarding me. So I will tell you, but only because I'd rather get this over with and return to my packing. The senile fool seems conflicted, as he can either interrupt and risk me changing my mind or let me explain before trying to reason with me. Time to waste my breath when we both know I'm going to be rewarded with my shiny headband of the salad. I'm sure you noticed I left a note with all the main details on your chair? I used a kunai to prevent being overlooked after all. I first noticed a few days ago as he became interested in my progress during the academy, despite having an unfavorable view of me, which I now know his reasoning for. At this the senile fool winces. How pitiful that he can't seem to stay strong when he's the one who could have prevented this by having any Jonin or Anbu watch snake reject. It wasn't until shortly before the exams that he approached my apartment and offered me information that you thought I had no right to know. At first, I thought it concerned my family, but then he mentioned it is about the village's treatment towards me. Do you think I'd pass up a chance to learn what supposed reasoning your village used to justify their treatment of a child? Well, I almost did, and it's not like knowing would change anything, right? I came here to speak with you, only to find you were busy with those orange books, and so I failed my exam and went to the library, which Iruka can confirm me sane and the librarian can confirm Mizuki approaching me once again. Here the Hokage glanced at Iruka, who nods that it's true. There he gave the lie of his about a more practical version of an exam in the form of a mission. Here a little anger returned to my voice before I paused to withdraw the paper slip with his Anbu patrols and security measures on the desk before him. That's why I was able to reach this room. I had hoped you'd be here, but by the time you arrived I'd already prepared a note and was heading out. If I'd stopped for you I'd just be a thief and Mizuki could try again. As he'd somehow managed to acquire the information he shouldn't have been able to access. As for confronting him, I'm pretty sure his fate shows he wasn't exactly worth that rank, and I also had my chains ready at all times since our first meeting. In case he revealed himself as the traitor I believed him to be. With this I simply wait for him to react. There isn't much else I can do after giving my reasoning and successfully eliminating a Chunin. He'd be a fool to just have me walk out, as I technically just followed orders of a teacher I should be able to trust. Plus I'd made him suffer a lot of guilt, so even if he did consider acting against me as the Hokage I'd be free by the invasion. Why would an invader leave an obvious Jinchuriki who'd have no reason to fight him imprisoned? If I didn't know Orochimaru or Danzo would jump at the chance to have me join them I'd have likely had to play a lot safer, but as far as I'm concerned, this fool is already dead. I've always tried to do my best for you Naruto, and, with all due respect Hokage, just save it. I'm tired and just want to know what your decision is about tonight. Anything related to my family? Irrelevant waste of time. If they're alive they abandoned me, and if they're dead? Goodbye to useless fools who clearly weren't worth their Hokage's time. My interruption seems to have broken the Hokage as the senile fool returns with the full force of his years as he releases a tired sigh and... Oh, he glanced at Stone Blonde out the window. You won't be punished. You followed your teacher's instructions, and as you've done exactly as I'd expect of my loyal ninja you shall be rewarded as one. With these dramatic words the Hokage at least seems to return briefly and withdraw something from his drawer and have an Anbu handed to me. As you weren't an official shinobi when you carried out the mission I can't have your file pushed forward for a potential field promotion, and I wouldn't even if you were, as it takes more than strength to reach Chunin. But I will instead overrule the mistake of you failing, as I personally witnessed your use of clones in combat, and ensure you receive the standard pay for dealing with a low Chunin traitor. As of this moment you are officially a genin of Konoha. You will report to your former classroom at the academy for team assignments tomorrow. With this said I simply nod and leave, as I've no interest in any excuses he gives me about Naruto's parents. I'm not one to sympathy with someone and freely admit I'm rather numb to most people's problems. However, to not even create a false background? That's less painful for an orphan to have than never knowing and always wondering if they're still out there having a picnic while you're stuck in the streets ignored or mocked by those who have lived their lives surrounded by chakra and its apparent uses, yet don't see the child. Still, the outburst served its purpose well. I'm a genin now regardless of the team test, as that'll only decide on if I have gotten a teacher or am left to personally progress alone. Stood in front of the Hokage, showing no signs of my rage from the night before. I await him to approve my file so that I can head over to the academy on time. As the Hokage hands the file over and seems to begin thinking of a way to get me to open up to him as Naruto used to, he's prevented from doing so by his grandson barging in and failing on his face. Not wanting to deal with him, I simply ignore him as I walk out. When he tries to demand that I take the blame for his stupidity, I simply smack him to the side and tell him to learn to walk if he's going to run. Not interested in fixing a problem his family is responsible for. Academy later that day. I'm currently sat with my head resting on my desk with my arms folded beneath them as I listen to yet another bunch of fangirls argue over the teams as if they have the choice. We all know Scarface will soon be arriving to assign our teams according to requests, traditions, and balanced leftovers. I really shouldn't have been so obviously hateful towards the Hokage. Now I'm going to likely be watched once again for any sign of going rogue. This is a thought that's been repeating itself for the last few minutes, as I finally allowed myself the time to contemplate my actions yesterday. But I was tired and had just devoured a rogue ninja's chakra without my usual free time to have my chakra settle before the Hokage called. Whatever they do because of this will be dealt with if necessary. I'll simply avoid my hideout for now until I have got a way to switch with a clone that won't be at risk of discovery. Upon my arrival at the academy this morning, I'd gone to the library and created a couple of shadow clones to get started on the genin restricted sections. The reason only a handful were used was the librarian and I agreed that using any more could affect others who come to the library, and regardless of how I'm always polite and respectful towards them as they've treated me rather well over the years. Not that any more would help as it'd begin overloading my head with information. Using shadow clones for jutsu, however, seemed less likely to cause anything beyond a headache at first due to the training mostly being the same each time, with the sole difference being an increased performance and understanding. Hey, wait a minute, isn't that Naruto? I thought he failed? Seems half an hour is how long it takes these genin to notice me. More voices of various civilians join the mutts in repeating variations of the same line, questioning why I'm here if I apparently failed. In case you didn't realize, I have got a headband on my left arm, meaning I clearly passed. Why exactly would you think I failed? It's true, as I decided to simply have it on my left arm to prevent it from being knocked off during battles, along with it's not likely to draw an enemy's attention unless they see my left arm, granting me a little extra time to spot and prepare for them. Or maybe I just didn't some metal on my head when I'm unlikely to be hit there. Regardless of my reasoning, it seems the mud is about to make this another pissing contest of his. Well, no one saw you leave, or out celebrating. Don't you want to show you're proud of passing? Huh, that's actually good reasoning from Kiba. The world must be ending. Nah, still another couple of years. Well, that's simple. I decided to go to the library after my exam to prepare for any future missions. Why would I waste time celebrating when we still had to deal with our Jonin's test to decide if we're good enough for them or not? I didn't mention anything about last night as I'd rather avoid revealing my actual skills to those who'd use it to waste time trying to beat me. What? Another test so soon? Troublesome, HN. And now everyone's focusing on the fact that Jonin will be testing them. While they'd likely doubt me if I'd said this years ago, I've never actually given them a reason to doubt what I've said and always shown I know a lot from the library, including information on team formations and common tests the Jonin use. First, the duo is here, and once again they're going to argue like they have every morning shortly after they started the academy. Kunai anyone? It's just self-defense to an attack on our ears if anyone asks why. One fangirl debate and Iruka interruption later. Alright class, today is the last day that you'll have to call me teacher, as we're all now comrades of the Will of Fire. I can only say how proud I am of you all and that I look forward to hearing about how far you rise from here on out. Oh look, Scarface is even holding back tears. How is this man allowed into Anbu? Or maybe he was kicked out for this very reason? Your teams are Great, no changes from canon teams, so they don't want my team to pass? I am not bothered by failing as it'll simply put us in the reserve and therefore allowing me to do missions alone. Able to collect volunteers, with greater ease and lower risk. The very thought brings a smile to my face. Maybe I could even get a few fellow Genin too? The door opens as various Jonin begin entering and calling for their teams to follow them. Probably have them fail upon seeing how many are fangirls. Half an hour later. Okay, I'm done waiting. Looking at the other two, Sasuke seems to be close to following his brother's example of committing a massacre, but I think this one would be aimed at fangirls. Probably those with pink hair too. I completely support that idea. How has pink become a natural color? Survival of the fittest, and pink disgusts all other colors into running away? Okay, see you. I saw this as I get up and begin moving towards the door to leave. Drawing both their attention to me. What? Naruto, doesn't be stupid, you can't just leave before our Jonin teacher gets here. Pink Banshee seems to think she can physically assault me, however as she runs forward I release a chain towards her. Only stopping before her face. If you want to wait for someone so late, then that's your choice. But if assaulting a fellow ninja because they do something you disagree with? Well, assaulting a comrade is rather serious. Consider this your only warning, as next time my chain doesn't stop. As for leaving, I'd rather not have someone so late to something they chose to do as my teacher. Or do you think they won't be like this for everything, including missions and meetings? Murder her? Probably not unless she goes too far, but it'll at least get her back off for now. If you stick around for them, then let them know I've gone home and am fine with being in the reserve over whoever they are, as I'd rather not risk my life under their leadership. With that said, I walk out, making a quick stop at the library to replace my clones with fresh ones, and head out to a random clearing to train for a bit. Forest clearing, behind Konoha's Hokage monument. The clearing I've chosen is a small area with a small pond with a little stream running through it. The reason I've chosen it over others is that it gives me both some distance from the rest of Konoha and options in what to train. Wonder if my departure will affect how long they wait. Probably not, considering he's likely still staring at that stone. Now what to start with? My chakra begins to manifest itself as I channel it into the ground beneath my feet, and slowly a few muddy figures emerge ready to aid me. These are just the result of a little application of my will into the earth to serve me, while my will can't shatter this reality. My chakra can at least twist it. Well, at least as long as I have got the knowledge to aid me. An earth jutsu combined with the method to create a shadow clone? I'm capable of using this to bring forth plenty of my own cannon fodder. Though they're sadly limited to the level of the jutsu used to mold them, so can't stand against most Jonin and only a few Chunin through their unique abilities to merge with the earth, allowing them to repeatedly regeneration so long as they remain in contact with any form of earth, and also to reshape themselves to better handle any threats against them. Still, before I gained shadow clones, I had to use the basic clone, which made them barely a match for any academy student with chakra. I simply have to acquire a Jonin Earth Jutsu and they'll finally be a successful creation, maybe even permanent? Let's start with something light before increasing numbers, shall we? 1 hour later. I'd done it. My earth creatures are able to work together and slowly feed off a flow of chakra I have going to them. But only enough to keep them alive, and able to recover so long as they survive. They could likely overwhelm most Chunin through numbers, and while I like that option, I'd rather they're capable of tearing apart Jonin alone. Sadly, I doubt that'd happen as they're still growing. They seem to have a sort of mind, which stores all their collective knowledge, allowing them to become increasingly deadly over time, as I've decided to have at least a dozen of them follow me at all times. This will not only allow them to continue learning, but also have a decent grasp of their surroundings as I create more for any fights later on. Combined with my devouring ability, and I can peek into their mind as a way to transfer their knowledge to me at the cost of one of my creations. They're almost as useful as my chains. I've also received my most recent shadow clone's memories, granting me the start of ceiling to consider for future experiments and possibilities. Still, I best finish sorting through the clone's knowledge now before it further builds up. Another hour later, I'm back at Naruto's apartment. I doubt I'll ever call it mine, as I don't desire to remain here for much longer. Not that I had spent much time here, having instead transferred anything of use or value to me into my hideout and allowing this place to act as a way to end from them. Glad I added that tunnel in the boiler room. Otherwise, pulling off a switch when potentially being watched by Anbu is unlikely to go well. Over the years I'm expanded tunnels through the underground of Konoha, utilizing the ability to reshape it to my will to reach otherwise impossible locations. Granted, I may have made some of Danzo's passageways collapse and stationed some watchdogs in case he decides to restore them. But my creatures can form into walls to hide my own entrances. After all, why use doors if you're able to create monster doors? Still, I doubt I've any time to switch with a shadow clone to avoid this pointless meeting. If it could be called such, waiting 3 hours before having to travel to the roof for a couple of minutes of conversation? What a waste of time. My mood's rapid drop was only beginning as the one Sharingan user Konoha had apparently arrived at the academy. He'd entered the library just as my shadow clones dispersed, and considering it was just him, he likely noticed I wasn't with the others, and due to my file knows I spend as much time as possible in the library. Act surprised or annoyed? I toss a kunai in the air. Should the pointy end hit the floor, then I'm annoyed. Should the handle hit the floor, then I'm surprised? Of course, it'd land like that. I glare at the kunai traitor that simply lied on the floor, ashamed to all its kind. Or is it a genius kunai? It's ready to grab and throw after all. A knock on the door draws my attention, and the kunai is suddenly in my hand. Genius kunai for sure. One open door later. Farmers lost and found. Are you a lost scarecrow? They're my neighbor's jurisdiction. I may be forced to deal with him, but I'm not going to be nice or serious with him beyond what's required. Well, perhaps you could help me? I appear to have lost a student of mine. That deadpan expression really doesn't match his words. Have you tried 3 hours ago? When they were supposed to meet them? I stare straight back, ignore the impossible, I smile. My words cause him to gain. That is either a self-based genjutsu like the henge or just anime logic. Well, you see, I was on my way to the meeting but came across an old lady carrying her shopping only to drop them. Naturally, I had to stop to help her. Afterward, I helped carry them for her, but upon reaching her house she found she'd lost her beans and I had to go find them. He says all this as if he's discussing the weather and adds a nod at the end as if showing he agrees with his story. You could just say you weren't interested in a team and have someone who can be on time show up. But let's just get this over with, as you've already wasted enough of my time today. Technically he only wasted 30 minutes, but I could have still used that time avoiding stutters. Actually, him being late means she was unable to follow me and see my creatures. I'll repay him with only a slightly edited introduction to myself, I guess. Now where's the fun in that? Anyway, I'll ignore you leaving this once, but in the future I expect you all to wait regardless of personal opinions. Now, are you going to come back willingly? As he finished, his stance changed slightly. While still relaxed, he's ready to act should he need to. As if I'd waste effort on a pointless fight after training. Never mind, he's a war veteran that's not only survived but did so at the age I started academy. As much as I'm sure you'd love to prove yourself against a fresh graduate of the academy, I know I'm no match for any competent chunin, and you're a rather infamous shinobi. Scarecrow? I smirk slightly at the end. No response from him? Seems he's either got a sense of humor or just plans to wait until his test for revenge. All good. I was hoping you'd be reasonable, though to also have a weird sense of humor is certainly a bonus. Let's go blonde. With little warning, he places his right arm upon my should. One shunshin later, I immediately do two things. First, lash out with a kunai, almost cutting his arm before he can hop back only the fence along the roof of the academy. Second, I try to avoid throwing up, but the pink banshee's face is making that difficult. So you really wasted 3 hours waiting for him? I can't help but laugh as Pinky and Duckbutt glare at me. Just in case they start to consider violence, a chain makes itself slightly visible from my sleeve, causing Pinky to flinch and back away slightly. Well, now that our final team member has joined us, let's start with getting to know each other. Please introduce yourselves to the rest of us, one at a time. His damn eye smile has returned and is seemingly taunting me to try again, but I don't. For now, maybe I should rip it out? That'd certainly be rather calming. Perhaps experiment to see how he achieves it. What are we supposed to say? Aren't I the supposed antisocial guy? How do you not know how to introduce yourself? Oh right, she was befriended by Ino through bullies and ditched Ino for Sasuke stalking. Never having to start her introduction first. Likes, things you hate, dreams for the future. Scarecrow shrugs as showing he really doesn't think much of Pinky's question. Things to use to mess with their minds and what to use as encouragement during training. I doubt he hasn't already gotten an idea of how we'll answer from our files. Why don't you go first? Since we've been in the same class for years and only just met you. Instead of Naruto making this suggestion like Kanon did, it instead fell to the only other one who can say more than HN on a good day. Pinky. Very well. I'm Kakashi Hitaki, things I like and things I hate? I don't feel like telling you that. My dreams for the future? I've never really thought about it. As for my hobbies? Scarecrow's only movement was to look up slightly at the end, no doubt remembering his latest book he's reading. Meanwhile, Pinky mutters about him only saying his name. Okay, your turn. He makes some vague gesture to us, so we get to wait for one of us to decide to go first. Pinky is the first to break under the silence, and it's almost entirely the same as Kanon, as she simply goes silent except for excited squealing about who she likes, even if she's delusionally thinking she's subtle, or it's some great mystery. What do you hate? Kakashi prompts in a futile attempt to break out of her little daydream. Pig. Pinky seems to look constipated as she screams this, though she didn't say my name, as besides today I've completely avoided the banshee. Good, let's stick to leaving me out of whatever delusional reality she's in. As Kakashi just stares at her, likely complaining about girls these days. Old Scarecrow likely forgotten Rin was the same to him, the only difference being Rin befriended an obsessive stalker and learned medical jutsu with her teacher pushing her. Guess Duck Butt still needs time to find his words, so I'll get this over with. Well, since I'd rather not keep wasting time, I'm Naruto Uzumaki. I'm not feeling like sharing my likes or dislikes. If Scarecrow can avoid questions, so will I. Either he'll think he knows from my file or he'll have to figure it out should he pass us. My dream? Med don't really have one. Giving a polite smile, I simply wait for Duck Butt to start. I can't exactly say it's to leave this reality. I'd be labeled crazy and constantly watched as a higher-classed risk. Thank you, Naruto, that was very informative. Beyond a brief pause, he acts as if nothing's wrong and turns to address Duck Butt, who also gives his canon response of, "Kill brother." But can't just say that, though, having to see your family killed repeatedly by your idol? Not just once but every second of 3 entire days. And he had that jutsu used 2 to 3 times on him. 518400 if twice, or 777,600 if 3 times. That's the number of seconds in 2 and 3 days. Granted, I can say I still won't spare Sasuke's life should he irritate me, but I'm at least willing to say I'd not talk him out of becoming a kin slayer. Okay, now that we all know each other better, I'll reveal that you are not in fact Genin. He pauses till we're all temporarily deafened due to a pink banshee screaming about how we've all gotten their headbands, though a little key from Kakashi has her remember not to interrupt a veteran killer. As I was saying, the academy tests for those who hold the potential to become Genin. The true test is the one you're given as a team by your assigned Jonin. In your case, me, and before you decide on coming, I'll give you a little information. He once more pauses as Pinky and Duck Butt lean forwards, expecting some big reveal, most likely. The survival exam has a 66% fail rate for those that graduate. In other words, out of all the teams your classmates have been placed in, only 3 will remain active after their exam is over. Well, that's all. I'll see you at 6 a.m. tomorrow, and try not to be late. Also, I'd advise not having anything to eat beforehand unless you want to throw up. With those last words of advice, he shuns, leaving only the 3 of us on the roof. Okay, I'm off. Try not to be so foolish in waiting so long without at least having something to occupy yourself with next time. Having given my team a little piece of common sense for when waiting so long, I jump over the edge and use chakra to run down the wall. Now do I want to pass? Or fail? Hideout. I chose to risk entering my hideout through the boiler room, using the fact it's impossible to see inside unless you possess the Byakugan, which isn't likely with the Hyuga clan mostly remaining in their clan compound, and never entering Anbu as the branch family are a security risk due to their seals allowing their clan to force information from them, and no main Hyuga are allowed to take such a dangerous path without the clan's head and elders' permission. Thus I can easily create a shadow clone to spend its time meditating before going to sleep for the night. I'm hoping this is unnecessary, but paranoia is never wrong when you live in a ninja village with several known traitors within the main government, one of which running his own Anbu and attempting to assassinate the Hokage at least twice too. Within the safety of its walls, I allow my form to shift, granting myself the more common dark brown various civilians and ninja have, along with calling my chakra to respond to my will. After all, regardless of how I do tomorrow, I want this experiment over with. I finally pass through the last passageway that leads to my main experiment room, my creatures having formed various statues along my path in case I ever need an immediate army. Why use a limited resource like humans who take time and effort to prepare at the cost of one who may have held greater potential? When you can, will the entire land awake and obey you? My footsteps echo through my home, with the only other sound being a slight rattling as I approach my destination. Good, you're much more active than yesterday morning. Does this mean you're ready to work with me now? If not, you do have other things I can take. Maybe your other eye? Upon entering my most used room, I take a red coat off the wall to cover my clothing, and reach for a jar on a nearby shelf, all the while the rattling increases as I get closer to a table where it originates from. I best get started, I've already been delayed for too long. I smile as I begin calling my chakra to my hands, bathing the room in a sick green, and a screaming follows only to suddenly be rendered mute. It's good to be able to work in peace once again. I was heading towards the training ground for the test. I didn't really want to deal with any of the team, and the only reason I was doing so regardless was generic and sickly didn't give me what I wanted years ago, and this team held the easiest way to get it. Now obviously I'd know and even expected not to have much luck, but I'd at least thought of the two I'd get one of them. What was I on about? Indra Otsutsuki. I had hoped to find a trace of his chakra within generic and sickly, but nothing was there beyond their normal reserves. To check if it was something hidden even from my unique abilities, I took a tooth and blood sample from Sasuke, and what did I get? A foreign chakra identical to his in almost every way but two. The potency of Indra's chakra in just the tooth showed it at least 4 as potent as Sasuke's, and then there was the hatred buried within it. I know chakra can react to emotion. It's an obvious observation from just witnessing my fellow students' chakra during their spars and how they react afterward. But to be able to infuse your emotions into your chakra to ensure whoever inherits it is slowly twisted into following your path. Truly, Indra was a waste of chakra. He had almost achieved what Orochimaru today seeks: immortality. Had he managed to get to the next step of including memories within chakra, he would have won his little tantrum against his brother centuries ago. Maybe have even turned his brother's own reincarnation to his view and then taught him to do the same. Comparing Sasuke's DNA with his cousin's? Now that was interesting, and it allowed them to get a boost, but never to an equal level as the original. Even trying on a live test subject didn't give alternate results. At least Asura was easily dealt with and has given my chakra a little stability to what it was originally. That's right, after all this time I'd finally devoured the last of Asura's chakra, and apparently he'd also made no further attempts than Indra. Such power, they could have worked together, power and influence to rule or shape the world. Just shows that fools are fools even with countless retries to improve. Arriving at the bridge where Sasuke stood, I decided to try getting this over with quickly. Don't want the Banshee to know anything more than necessary. Sasuke, how would you like to know the true test of Kakashi Hatake? I stand at the edge and face him as his expression changes from annoyance, likely over me interrupting his thoughts, and settling on curiosity. What do you mean? And how would you find out when I couldn't? Seems he did try looking into Kakashi's test. I happened to have had a few meetings during my time at the orphanage. The Hokage occasionally told a few stories about his rather famous students. The Sannin. Apparently, they were also Team 7 and received a bell test. One of them, Jiraiya, trained the future 4th Hokage, who also had a Team 7 with the same test as before. Catch the connection? I paused to allow Sasuke to keep up with the sudden information dump. Glad he's at least capable of connect the dots. Same team number and test. But stop with the history lesson and get to the point. Why are you telling me this? Sasuke is starting to show his impatience, but that's understandable as Kakashi or Banshee could arrive soon. Well, if Banshee wasn't delayed due to having her dress ruined on the way by a convenient slip into some mud. Fine, Kakashi has had his past potential teams try the same test, all failed. You see, they fall for his trick in thinking they must get one of 2 bells or return to the academy. The truth? They need only work together against him. After all, how else do you beat a Jonin veteran of a shinobi war? Here I can at least see Sasuke is thinking about what I'm saying. Hopefully, it's enough. But just in case, what I'm offering Sasuke is this. We work together to beat this test so that we aren't stuck wasting years back at academy and instead receive a Jonin who was the 4th Hokage's student as our teacher. How about it, Sasuke? Are you willing to work with me this once to get the training to avenge your clan? I smile at the end. We both know he'll accept, as refusing would result in waiting years to potentially get the training to match Itachi. Fine, but only if it is the bell test and I get one of the bells at the end as insurance. I also make the plan and any orders, got it? At this we have a short staring contest. I'm not really interested in leading but following orders? Ha ha ha. Do I look like I'm interested in leading? Keeping my laughter to just my smile was rather difficult. Why fight to lead a team I want nothing to do with? Alright, but we'll sadly need that pink banshee of yours to also join us. Can't risk Kakashi failing this because only 2 of us work together, though so long as she thinks it'll just be you 2 on the team and me taking the sacrifice to let you pass will work. Just some advice for the leader to think on. And think he did. He's lost his ability to speak. Oh well, I got what I needed to pass and therefore get what I want soon enough. Well, since we're in agreement, I'll leave you to your fangirl as she's finally here. With that, I immediately ditch the poor sucker who must now tell the banshee he needs her help. Ah, I suddenly feel much better about this wait. Now, where'd I seal my books? 3 hours later. As I wait for Kakashi to come out from the trees my Earth Watchers have informed me he's watching from, I look towards where Sasuke stands at the bridge as he had since my arrival, though he's certainly getting rather impatient if his slight glare is anything to go by. He responds with a short nod before returning to glaring towards the entrance. Guess that means he's suddenly started greeting people politely, or Pinky is about to make herself useful. Yay, can't believe I even thought that myself. Speaking of Pinky, she's currently sat on the bridge near Sasuke and glancing at him when she thinks we won't realize. I do a few stretches after having remained seated for so long against a tree as Kakashi makes himself known. Hopefully, this will be worth the effort later on. After all, I only need them for a short time. You're late. Of course, she'd yell the obvious. Short explanation later. The 3 of us stood together in the trees. As soon as Kakashi had given the signal, we each followed the plan to act as if we planned to try and ambush, only to await Sasuke's signal. Needless to say, the attempt failed. Sasuke confronted Kakashi to get his attention, while Sakura moved to his left and me his right. When Sasuke launched a fireball towards Kakashi's feet, making him jump into the air, Sakura and I throw several shuriken and kunai. However, all Kakashi did was use substitution to avoid it all and travel underground to remove Sasuke temporarily. I quickly tried to send a few chains at him while a few spare chains worked to get Sasuke free. All the while Sakura was throwing shuriken in some futile attempt to get a hit. By the time Sasuke was out, Sakura was exhausted from not eating combined with her diet, and I was still restricting myself to only half a dozen chains. However, one of my watchers had informed me of a bell set before a tree. I knew this trap from not just canon but also that it couldn't have simply fallen, when Kakashi was so confident in having fights without checking on them. I quickly had a clone grab it from the earth, which definitely startled Kakashi, who'd expected one of us to run over after spotting it. And we made a strategic withdrawal to run away, even if the other 2 didn't know my actions. Well, Sasuke, I've got the insurance, so long as you stick to our agreement. And that's how the 3 of us got to this situation, tired from both the long wait and constant moving, along with fighting and fleeing from Kakashi. As Sasuke began trying to plan with Sakura essentially out the test, considering she'd lost any will to continue after the most recent run-in with Kakashi. I may have gotten a chain to rot his book, my bad. On the plus side, his revenge with the finger up the ass was avoided thanks to switching with Sakura. All I did was trip over a stone and he got Sakura, who'd been running past me, on the other side to Kakashi. Bell rings. Strange, the timer shouldn't have gone off so soon. Maybe the book incident made him have enough? Likely seen enough with us working together and at least one of us having a bell yet still helping the others. As we cautiously made our way over to him and he came into view, I decided I'd hold up my end of our arrangement. Well, guess we failed. As agreed, Sasuke, the first bell is yours, I say as I take it from my pocket and hand it over. Strangely, Kakashi hasn't spoken despite having watched us arrive, probably to see how we react. Thank you, but how did you manage to get this when he was always at a distance? Simple, I had a couple of shadow clones around the area and also some hanged as leaves that dispersed upon seeing Kakashi leave one on the ground as bait. This transferred its information to the rest, allowing one to grab it and pass it among the others to prevent him from recovering it before the alarm went off. Partially true in what I did with it until the end, as it was after the alarm rang that I'd my watcher pass it up to me. What followed after this was a decent amount of arguing between myself and Sasuke over him feeling I should take it since he didn't think he earned it. All fake, as we knew him just agreeing wouldn't result in passing, and the only real arguing was when we decided Sakura should take it. Her freaking out about it was truly worth it. Fortunately, Kakashi chose to intervene and reveal the true test before passing us. Sadly, this was ruined by his stupid view of betraying comrades makes you worse than trash. Well, that's no problem. Why would I class any of you as my comrades? I just smiled as within a seal on the inside of my left sleeve was a couple of kunai with Sasuke DNA on. I took years devouring Asura's chakra. Hopefully, the boost it gave will shorten this devouring Indra's. Piece by piece. 2 days later, within the Hokage's office. 2 days after the exam, and our team were once more about to start another D rank. The previous days had been the same, waste time waiting for him in the mornings and the D ranks until at least noon. Meaning we may do multiple short chores or just a long one. We'd then do some team bonding, in the form of drills to improve our teamwork, and then end the day with a few hours to do whatever we felt necessary to improve ourselves. Not really a hands-on guy, but what can you expect from Kakashi? Lazy ass. I'm only personally going to be doing the bonding as it requires physical contact, and I'd rather avoid dealing with anyone finding out I switch with my clone depending on the D ranks. I've also already had to be less careful with my hideout, as under Kakashi's watch most of the day gives them fewer reasons to assign someone to stalk me. Not that they can do so very well when I have got the areas around my hidden entrances under my own security and am able to use various locations to switch with various clones multiple times before entering. You're in luck today, Kakashi. You have a choice between gardening for an elderly couple and helping repair some broken fences. Yep, chores. What a waste of bloody time. While Kakashi was thinking over which to choose, Sasuke was glaring at him as he's already close to snapping, while Sakura is still watching him but also keeping to a distance from Kakashi since the exam. Still, it's kept her quiet for the most part, and so long as it remains like this I'm not going to complain much. As always, when given an option of 2 short D ranks, he ended up taking both, and so we began making our way down the street, at least until I pulled off a quick substitution with an Earth Shadow clone. These were what I got if I used my Watcher creation, but instead of forcing the Earth to wake, I give part of my mind to it in the form of a Shadow clone, granting them the ability to heal and remain intact unless it takes a killing blow. After waiting a couple of moments in a nearby alley to check if I was noticed, I made my way to the closest entrance of my hideout to begin a little check on my progress. Upon reaching the experiment room, there is an instant change to the layout of the room as he's added a passageway descending further below the earth. This leads to a large training area for my personal use and abilities I'm learning or to test the experiments that undergo combat trials. And along the walls are hundreds of identical cells, which have my collected subjects resting permanently frozen through the use of seals to preserve them unless needed, and a pile of notes attached to each wall on their left that explain the experiments and results. Further into this level is my destination, another experimentation room. But this one holds living volunteers, also in stasis unless I require one of them. Now, this may remind certain individuals of Orochimaru's experiments. However, mine isn't about chasing immortality, as that's something I know how to acquire even without Asura's and Indra's chakra. These are all evolved humans, they're merged with their chakra on their most base level, and some even merged with others. This is what I've said to blow, should I need a little distraction. A few hundred slaves bound to my will and capable of consuming the chakra of others. Never resting or stopping. Sadly, all needed binding due to being unwilling to obey. An hour later, further into the base. I can never understand why so many willingly stay weak and unwilling to at least unlock their chakra. Sure, they want to remain safe by presenting no threat to the ninja clans and villages, but what about the bandits? Rogues? Even bloody wars? They'll be killed by these regardless of their civilian status, and yet they do nothing. I turn to the table of my latest experiment, All that remains are an empty jar containing a purple fluid with a heart and a large dark-skinned, humanoid creature with sharp spikes upon its shoulders and back, chained up against a wall. It'd be raging against such restraints to reach me if it was alive. But I needed that, and so it's perfectly safe. So attempts to merge their chakra with some of nature's results in an aggressive transformation into a monstrous creature of both strength and endurance, even lasting several minutes without its heart. To think this is just a minor application of what nature could grant some civilian kids. The sound of crying draws my attention away to a cage along the wall. Inside, a small kid is sat in the shadows, hands covering their eyes as they break down into tears once again. So you're truly a success? Remarkable, a civilian capable of completely surviving something their siblings could not. Why is that? Realizing they've drawn my attention, something the various subjects apparently warn each other of doing during whatever time they get, they slowly lift their head out from the safety of their hands and look towards me. Two red eyes burn in the shadows as the kid glares at me. You killed me, siblings? Ah, the cliché of vengeful kids. Maybe I should introduce them to Tenzo? Or Sasuke? Take a look around, Brad. You're all sat in a warm cage without worrying about food, sickness, or family. Before this, where were you again? I gesture around to both the empty tray of food near them and the other cells whose inhabitants flinch from the walls they've backed up against. Oh right, Konoha's streets, alone and starving. As everyone passed by without any concern for you or your fate. Don't whine about losing siblings when you only met them because I brought you all here. If not for me, they'd have likely stabbed you in some random alley over a loaf of bread. Here the kid breaks their glare as they can't deny something we all know. Tears falling once again, but I am not finished with this test. Face it, kid, you got a few moments of family because of me. Because I left you all to bond instead of keeping you in stasis after taking one of you. Perhaps you should show some gratitude? I could not give you something to hold on to. Huh, is that it? Something so obvious, almost missed due to my focus on the other variables? Bonding? Hold on to? A child's desire to see their siblings? Their will to remain whole. Truly, this test is a great success. I gain a smile towards the kid, which seems to have sent everyone here into a panic. Thanks, kid, you just gave me my answer. So as a reward, allow me to tell you why, okay? This draws the attention of the room towards me, as I've not once bothered explaining myself beyond the occasional moments that I speak aloud as I'm working. They wanted to die, they lacked the will to survive and didn't care for their fate. Not even to see you and the others once again. I slowly make my way to the kid as they cower in fear and denial of what I'm saying. You're a liar. They'd never leave me alone here, we were family. So you say they were your family? Well, you weren't theirs. Why else would they leave you to this place? I'm now outside the cage, looking towards them with only a little sadness that slips into my voice near the end as I'm drawn to thoughts and memories of another time, when I can hardly see any more beyond the nights filled with their judgment. I'll deal with any judgment of theirs should I manage to see them again. Anger and sadness rise as I consider my actions so far, the ones I must take and the ones I'm going to anyway. But how about we start again? I'll give you a new family, and all you have to do is stick around, prove me wrong about this world, and I'll let everyone else go. I'm now inside the cage with the child, the shadows no longer concealing the small girl from my sight. Crouching down to her eye level, one speaks softly as I extend an arm to her. Well, kid, do we have a deal? And well, that was a pain to decide on exactly where to stop, but think it ended all right. I had trouble with the exam despite knowing how I wanted it to go, along with how my SI could do it. I think Sasuke would have agreed, as he knows that by his age Itachi was already to Anbu, and a year later able to massacre a clan with veterans from the past wars and not take a hit. So when offered a chance to ensure he progresses, well, he was willing to later allow Orochimaru to take his body, and only changed his mind after seeing his work. The SI and Sasuke getting Sakura to take the bell's wisdom, knowing she'd never let herself pass over her crush or the one who actually got the bell. Plus Kakashi just stuck his fingers up her ass, so I doubt she'll be fine around him for some time. As for the experimenting, my SI has basically been denying how much they're changing, and all their crimes are viewed as necessary instead of curiosity, all the while refused to contain with the characters from the anime, leading to increasingly viewing the world as false. With an experiment actually able to question him? Well, my mind easily wanders between thoughts, and it's strayed to how they'll be viewed should they get back. Do keep in mind it isn't going to suddenly become sunshine and rainbows as my SI is in too deep to stop now, and he may have just found someone who's able to help him return to his original mindset or not. Please leave a review about your thoughts, although I'll say now I did put a warning at the top. She slowly reached for my hand with a quick nod. However, that didn't mean I suddenly had a change of heart and accepted my role in this reality. I then set her to work on experimenting with her abilities, and a few days later, she did a futile attempt of freeing my experiments, specifically those that had been in the cells around her, and although some did follow her to the arena, some had lost any will to fight or survive. About time. Now who among them wants to survive? I had been waiting for her to do this, to teach her to listen and behave. But the others? Well, I wanted to use this to separate those who still hold a will to survive as she had from those that don't. As they were passing through the arena, I entered from the other side, and even though they paused in fear of me due to knowing how I continued towards them, chains forming from my arms and back. You really didn't think I trusted you so easily, did you? My chains shot at the experiments, still frozen and barely able to do more than struggle as the chains wrapped around them. Even as my assistant ran at me and her body became more misty in appearance, my experiment on her had been about being one with your soul after all. But she immediately had to avoid the various fodder I threw at her. Those she couldn't, well, they were consumed by her. All their fears added to her own as I feed her the ones that quickly gave up and had the rest thrown into unused cells to later use. Such a tactic didn't stop her, but it wasn't meant to. She allowed her emotions to continue uncontrolled, and slowly her misty appearance became increasingly large and deformed from her original state. Interesting seems she takes on their own traits. Even from my experiments and this soul form or whatever it shapes itself to match her unnatural nature due to the experiments I've done. I spend a short time countering all her physical attacks with my chains, not risking some merging, where we'd fight with my soul at risk despite having an idea of how to win that. Got to make sure to finish one experiment before going to the next. I trigger an emergency seal I have on all successful or surviving experiments, immediately causing her to suffer all the pain of her experiments and those of her victims. Her form rapidly breaks and she reforms back in her child form, panting from the seal that'll simply add this experience to the next time it's used. A perfect way to always break one's will to defy me. Stood over her, I simply tell her, in front of all the others, that she passed her test. Should at least make them less likely to trust her again, and those that did this time? Well, I've experiments planned for them. I then considered how to deal with my assistant. Come with me, we're going for a walk around Konoha. Any attempts to run or cause a distraction? It will result in the seal of all the children in those cages activating, but should you play along, I'll let you spend a little time with them. But any repeat of this incident and they'll never die. Outside hideout. While she was crying at first, by the time we reached the surface she'd gotten herself back under control and was looking around in shock. Notice anything different? No? Because they still haven't realized what I'm doing under them. They still don't care for the worthless individuals. She keeps looking around, and even when we reach the main streets, no one wants to acknowledge us. She may not have realized it's likely more due to avoiding my existence than hers, but it serves my purpose here. I take her to a dango shop for a treat, as I put it. She did use her abilities on some experiments as I'd requested, even if she needed a little push to do so. As we're finding a seat, I ensure to have a certain kunoichi on a table behind her. Anko, failed experiment, apprentice and temporarily rouge ninja of Orochimaru. Hated and distrusted by most civilians and fellow comrades. After our dango is delivered and we're left alone, I ask her plans had she escaped, how she'd deal with the treatment as a creation of a monster, and a monster herself, and when she thinks they could still understand. I have her glance behind her and tell her a little history of Konoha about Orochimaru and his seal on Anko. I take us back to the hideout and tell her that so long as she listens from now on and doesn't defy me or my orders, then I'll allow her to come to the surface, even get the other children treats. But in return, she must aid my experiments and convince them to willingly do so. After all, if Konoha will always treat you as a monster for something you can't control, then why not make a family of monsters instead? This was the last thing I said to her that day, and she's been rather docile since. I occasionally have her consume experiments that have begun to twist her already broken mind into more like my own. I do stick to my word of taking her to the surface for dango and other treats for the kids, though over the following weeks she gets them less and shows a nice jump in loyalty. I'll have to use similar experiments to hers if I'm to get anyone loyal to me to continue my experiments whenever I'm away. 2 weeks since forming Team 7. I was bored of what? Konoha. Every day for the past 2 weeks, I've simply switched with a clone while avoiding the Hokage's subtle attempts to discuss the revelation of me being a Jinchuriki, along with ignoring Kakashi's lazy remarks on teamwork and trust, and dealing with my team. Sasuke is mostly silent and like my clone does what's asked, but makes no attempt to befriend or interact with anyone unless necessary, and Pinky is not only avoiding Kakashi as best she can, she's also refusing to break her diet or out from her fantasy. I'm getting sick of it all, and yet I'm certain Pinky will soon snap or duck butt. Depends on if we get a D rank involving dirt or Kakashi tries his preaching again. He hid it well, but I saw him glance to me in sadness, at least I think it was. As if he expected the happy facade of 6-year-old Naruto to appear and bring some balance to the team. Like I'm interested in helping his issues. I don't care if the Hokage expected this team to be therapy for him. A revived Team Minato for him to make amends for his past actions and decisions. If you can't live with your past, you shouldn't have created it. I'm not going to waste my time just so he can look in the mirror. Funny really, if we were his team it'd be me expected to be Obito. The fool who couldn't access his heritage until he needed was ready to sacrifice himself to save his team. How fitting for a Jinchuriki to take such a role, right? Speaking of which, I've delayed that meeting for some time, wanting to wait for the fuzzball to wake up and have multiple options to negotiate with him. To think I've wasted so long putting this off. I was in my hideouts arena, having skipped out on the D rank of choice for today, catch Tora. I'll switch back afterward, as I doubt it'll take long with Fuzzy being unable to do little more than rant, and if there's one that results in a quick end it'd be that. Right now I'm in the center of the room and sat calmly, slowly willing my chakra into the seal on my stomach. So little effort required to access an infinite chakra source and possibly a key to having myself truly merged with chakra, beyond the limits of simply reincarnating. Why become someone else with the potential to reach my level, when I can also have my mind remain safe within my chakra? Should this work, I'll no longer be limited to such a small life to leave this reality. But endless. What will time be but a number for me? Within Kurama's seal. My first thoughts upon seeing the prison of Kurama's young half? How fitting for a fragmented fragment. I smirk as I make my way forward. I don't have any interest in being here any longer than I already have. I soon arrive before the gates to Kurama, behind which lies the sleeping form of part of what once made up the divine tree. Oh Fuzzy, your warden's here to talk. Now get up. My voice echoes through the seal and slowly a red eye opens. So, you finally come to see me? Let me guess. You desire my power? My chakra? If I were to describe Kurama's voice, I'd say, tired and bored. And why not? This situation is the same as Kushina likely tried with him, at least to his knowledge. Jinchuriki shows up and demands his power for their hard life. Like this seal isn't worse for a being that's lived countless centuries, ever since his mad creator set him loose. Yet instead of sharing tales of such a monster, he's instead trapped within his father's reborn son. Condemned to merely watch his father's dreams shatter further from his prison. Well, yes and no. My smirk widens as I stare at such a powerful entity and see only a new tool. I'm actually here because I'm bored and thought I'd delayed dealing with you long enough. I project my will into reality and a chair forms for me to rest on as I continue. So I'm not here because I need your power or even want it. Whatever it can grant me I've either replicated or surpassed years ago. Maybe if you were the other half, the reality-breaking half instead of the physical portion, I might have been. As I say this, my chakra begins to flow from my position, the black chakra changing first the water and then the walls, before the entire seal was a twisted mockery of what it once was. The water and pipes, a combination of various colors with faint images of faces within them, the fate of all I devour, to remain forever bound to my will. The pipes a sickly green casting a disturbing light throughout the seal, and finally the walls, ceiling, and what floor is visible through the waters are all the same color of my chakra, pitch black. Except for Kurama's cell. That I couldn't touch yet. I could only prevent Kurama's voice from leaving his cell. The gate prevents any influence from both sides? How irritating. but expected considering I doubt Minato wanted to risk a repeat of Konoha vs Kurama. As you can see, I'm quite capable on my own. Why would I ask you for anything? I gesture to our surroundings as I speak. I do want to make sure he's aware of the extent of my reach. A mere fragmented waste, taken from the corpse of a mad fool by another and split twice too many to be worth any chance of making a deal or offer. Even my experiments are above you. I kindly show him a few images of said experiments, from my original concerning his father's descendants, to my more recent studies into the reincarnation of his children, and the dormant genes within them. After all, only inheriting half their father's heritage? Indra and Asura had inherited all the genetic requirements to reach his level, but it had laid dormant, or locked, due to their own belief and physical limits. All it would have taken was an extra push to awaken the rest, but I doubt their father wanted such powerful individuals loose without him to control them. He was just as mad as his mother and brothers were. I calmly approach the gate and reach for the seal. I pry a piece off and as expected a hand grabbed mine. Hello, Minato. I stare blankly towards the blonde fool and chuckle as he attempts to cleanse my influence. Ignoring Kurama raging against his cage. Naruto, you've grown so much. But what happened here? Why can't I restore the seal? He looks relieved and happy overseeing Naruto, but also confused and worried about the state of the seal. Not quite, Minato. And do stop wasting your strength, that isn't going to work, it's my seal and will against whatever of yours remains. I'm also not interested in any reasoning you hold for your actions or even ignorance of who you fought that night. Tell me though, how did it feel to fight Obito? After all, I doubt you missed the chakra being familiar, right? Must have been fun, losing to a dead 14-year-old. This makes him freeze in shock for a few moments, allowing my chains to shoot towards me from all sides and trap him. No response? Well, that's okay, I'm sure he'll have an answer when I find him. You, however? My chains pull him into the waters below, until only his face is visible and he's unable to speak due to the water entering his mouth. Don't worry, I'm not actually bothered about your choice as you're going to get a front row seat to all I have done and will do in the future. Consider it payment for not listening to your wife about Jinchuriki. You'll see what I mean soon enough. With this said, he's devoured by the waters as I glance at Kurama's cell. He's apparently stopped his futile attempt to get free once I began devouring Minato's chakra. Got a nice little calming influence to add to the various unstable, crazy chakras I've collected over the years. Don't think I'm forgetting about you, Kurama. I was simply here to deal with him today and make you aware of what I could do if you don't behave. However, should you obey me willingly? I might have a way to free you. With Minato dealt with and the seal unable to be opened until Jiraiya hands over a key, I allow my form to fade from the seal. Back to Sis' body. Opening my eyes, I immediately rise from the floor and stretch after remaining still for so long it's got quite a few snaps to work off. Once my body no longer feels as stiff, I head to my experimenting room to check on things before then leaving to rejoin my team. Can't leave experiments unchecked after all. Who knows what my new assistant could think they'd get away with. As if I don't have fail-safes. My assistant was now fairly loyal, but that didn't grant me perfect control over her. She'd actually begun her own experiment of twisting others' souls. It was truly interesting to see a demonic arm form over hers and pierce a random volunteer. Their bodies slowly twisted into some disgusting creature, similar to the spiked monster I'd made when I recruited her. Wonder if that actually imprinted on her to make her twisted subjects into replicas? The answer to this seemed to be a yes, as I had her repeat it a few times and now had 10 of the creatures, all whose will was bent to total obedience. I haven't had to do another repeat yet, but I've already gotten some other loyalty experiments underway as well as another seal I place on all experiments that survive to immediately control them long enough to enter their cells and activate the stasis seals until I'm able to return. Need to continue work on those limits before I leave for Wave Hokage's office. I managed to switch with my clone and apparently we'd done several D ranks since I left. And I'd also missed Sakura punch Kakashi's nuts when he wasn't expecting it and got too close to her. I don't think she's letting her experience go. Well, at least it shows she's some potential. A fangirl taking him off guard isn't easy. Shame it was likely faked by the former Anbu captain, otherwise, he'd react on experience and probably kill her. Well, we have got a few D ranks you can still choose from? And Tora seems to be available again if you're looking to challenge yourself in being faster this time? The Hokage only pauses after his first question due to the sounds of Tora escaping death once again. Maybe Tora would be a good experiment? No, too risky considering the owners. Let's see if I can get AC rank now. My watchers noticed someone resembling a drunken old man while I was in my hideout. Hopefully, I can use wave to hold another site once I've enough helpers. Can't we do a C rank? We've over twice the required amount, and C ranks are typically just D ranks that take longer with the occasional bandits. Unlike Naruto's complaining, I'm calmer and actually correct in my view of C ranks being usually just longer missions of ensuring people or products reach the location on time and intact. Though bandits are a common issue, so some are to cut down a certain group that's drawn the attention of a village or organization. Oh, you think you're ready after only 2 weeks as Genin? The Hokage probably wouldn't have been interested in listening if this wasn't the first conversation we'd held since Mizuki's death. Well, if not, we have got a Jonin for that reason and an idea of where to improve, but doing D ranks that are aimed at improving teamwork isn't doing anything for us. You also know I'm rather capable of looking after myself, with Sasuke having focused on combat training and Kakashi to keep an eye on us if necessary. How is this a combat if we're stuck doing D ranks even as the other teams are close to getting C ranks too? You've made your point, and from the look of your teammates they share your opinion, but what about your teacher? Kakashi, how do you feel about a C rank after so many D ranks? At this, myself, Sasuke, and Sakura all turned to Kakashi, Sakura seemingly ready to attack him again as he steps forward to address the Hokage. Well, they have done sufficiently in terms of teamwork and done enough D ranks to at least earn themselves a chance. Iruka did object to this but was immediately put in his place by Kakashi. Very well, if you're certain and your entire team is in agreement. Bring in Tazuna, tell him he has his team. Oh, so that's his name. That's all for now. If you enjoy, then please like, share and do comments.